And a couple of years ago, the UN Rapporteur for Human Rights, he said that the Malays are severely lagging behind the Chinese and the Indians. And Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said in his book Hard Truths as well, that the Malays will never catch up with the Indians and Chinese. So my question is, if that is the reality, or if that is the belief of the people in charge, shouldn't there be, or would the government ever consider having some minority protection, or maybe you can call it affirmative action, in the area of economics, as you do in the political scene, as we see in the GRC? So why is it that we can allow affirmative action in one sector but not in another? Thank you.
Okay. That's a very important issue that you have posed. First, you find in most societies, including our own, that starting points are always different. You can look at it by race, and indeed, the average performance of Malays and Indians, for that matter, is significantly below the Chinese. You can look at it by socio-economic group, and you find typically those who start off in 1- and 2-room flats, weaker performance compared to those who start off in 4- to 5-room flats and private property. There are many different ways you can look at it. There's always a situation where you start off with some differences in performance and abilities. The question is what you do about it and whether it's a hopeless case. And I don't think it's a hopeless case. If you look, for instance, since you raised the issue of Malays, if you look at the Malays, the improvement in levels of achievement throughout the school system and in the tertiary system has been very significant. Very significant. And quite frankly, if you compare Singapore Malays with others around the region, their standards of achievement are just far higher. Far higher. I used to be Minister for Education, and I would study the data quite carefully each year when we had, well, every 2 years we have the TIMSS results, TIMSS, International Maths and Science tests. It's an American-based test, and you have PISA, which is the OECD equivalent. And we used to study the data carefully to look at it for different groups of students, by socio-economic background especially. And I'd also look at it by race as a matter of interest. And the performance of Singapore Malays in maths and science was equivalent to the best European country. It's not bad. Are they worse off because Singapore Chinese are doing even better? Ask ourselves that. Are we worse off as minorities because there's another group that's doing even better? So that's a very important question. Secondly, you've got to think very hard about affirmative action, which is not a crazy idea. It's not a crazy idea. And in many companies, for instance, they look out for ways of trying to find women to take on senior positions, make sure that people from minority groups have an opportunity. It's done all over the world. But when you do it as a system, as opposed to within individual companies or organizations, many things happen that are unintended. And frankly, one of the lessons coming out of affirmative action in countries that I will not name is that those who are most disadvantaged are those whom the policy was outwardly meant to serve. Because drive tends to ebb over time. The sense of wanting to strive and do better tends to ebb over time. And those that are not favored by an affirmative action, in a curious way, tend to work even harder. And this is true even in the United States, where many people say that, if you're a capable and aspiring African American, the last thing you want to do is have people think that you got into that university because of affirmative action. It scars you. I got there because of my effort. And that's how I will succeed in life. So it's not a crazy idea, but when you do it as a system through national policy, it has many unintended effects on the social psychology of those you're trying to help, as well as the way in which the rest of society looks at them. And that's why many of my Malay friends, those who are doing well, succeeding, they don't want affirmative action. They want a society where you have fairness, meritocracy, And every employer hires and promotes based on ability. And we are not fully there yet. I think in many respects in Singapore, we still have improvement. We still need improvement. Still need improvement in the workplace, particularly in the private sector. And it's firstly issues of race, but secondly issues of age. Older folk in Singapore are not always treated as equally as they should be relative to ability. So, no society is perfect, but we can do better, and we've got to keep working at it. But avoid the simple solutions of state policy trying to solve these problems, because there are many unintended effects.